didn't tell them go call for Sharia and take over the governments. No, he said go call to Islam. When the people accept, alhamdulillah, So he was following extreme sect of Islam. And I always tell the people who are upon the same upon the same methodology he was upon, that if you carry on, you never know, you're gonna become proper doing haram sins openly, or you will leave Islam claiming you study history, you study political theology, and so on. I'm speaking. It's all respect.
Let me offline.
You see, so, but you are lying too, and I allow you to speak.
But you know when you speak, this is gonna happen as well. I hope you can take it.
Thank you.
Now we're interrupting.
Bro, I'll speak to you, man. Seriously, but lie, because why? This individual was lecturing us about, in summary, good manners, be intellectual. Then he's contradicting himself now. While I'm speaking, he's cutting me, accusing me of lies. Anyway, so what I would say, when I see him become a kafir, I'm not happy, of course, but I always say, Sadaq al-Mustafa alayhi salam. The prophecy of the Messenger of Allah sallam, this a living example of the prophecy of al-Mustafa alayhi salam. The reason he left Islam, going through history, going through her story, my story, the fact is, Wassan taught us the extremists will be destroyed, and this guy is the living example. You can't be smoking when I'm speaking to you.
I can smoke where I like. It's a free country. If you don't like it,
no, it's a free country, but it's not free here. No, it's a free country. It's not free country. You can't go and buy any. No, but anyway, so I'm leaving that.
Yeah, that's right to do that.
But let's leave, because he's scared. He will carry on discussion. Now expose him.
no, I smoke because
Khawarij, he will be with you.
We're allowed
He's
to
a Prophet
smoke.
Murji'ah, he becomes
We're allowed
kafir
to
with
smoke. Right, so I'll address SOCO films because he's mic'd me up and he's willing to stay. He's run off before I gave an answer.
I wanted to see that.
So I'm going to respond to the point you made. So he said that I used to be an extremist and all this, and he's given his reasons why I left Islam. First of all, load of nonsense. He didn't listen to what I said. There's no hadith that said people are going to leave Islam because they research history, politics, and geopolitical history. There's no hadith that says that. Load of nonsense. First of all, about the extremism thing, I was actually going to say to him, I left that sort of understanding and was still a practicing Muslim for most of the time. Oh, wow. But he didn't want to listen to that because he's run off, because he's scared of a cigarette, because it's haram and it's going to take him to hell. I don't know. But anyway,
that's a lot of Muslim that sort of guy here.
I know. But the point is, I was actually gonna say, what you say is not actually true, because I left the extremist, dangerous crap and was just a regular guy still practicing the religion. And that was how I spent most of the time. There was personal experiences that happened in my life that changed my views. And it got to a point where I didn't agree with the views I used to advocate in this park. And that's why off camera, I've spoken to people like Steve and even Bob, and I have actually apologized for the dangerous shit that I used to spout here, because I genuinely do feel bad that, in the future, I'll probably have to explain to our children stuff that, I was once a brainwashed, dangerous idiot. Okay. I accept that, but I'm honest enough to own up to that.
I ain't gonna lie, that takes a lot of man to do
but
that.
obviously, that's all I was going to explain to Shamsi. It's nothing to do with any bloody hadith. It's because I had to seriously reassess myself and look at certain things in the world that actually made me physically sick, one of them. And I had to actually question, do I want to advocate something that actually makes me sick when I see it in action?
Just a question. It wasn't lining up with the reality.
So not religion separate, yeah? Not the religion as a whole, but like the specific branch I was following and what I was subscribing to specifically. That sort of stuff I grew away from because of as incidents happened in the real world, and as I matured and had, family responsibilities, things like that, there was a point where I had to actually sit back and say, how can I advocate a viewpoint that I myself am not comfortable with when it's physically around? So I had to actually self-reflect and start to go, I think I might be wrong. And that wasn't actually about Islam, that was about the crap, the extremist, dangerous crap I was on when I first used to come here. So, and I was going to explain to Shamsi that actually I left that stuff, and for the majority of the time, I was a practicing Muslim who wasn't involved in any of that crap.
How long was it before? Just
About 9 years. So, yeah, I mean, so what he said was factually incorrect. Didn't want to hear my arguments and then stormed off because I lit a cigarette. And then he's trying to tell me.
But you understand that some people don't want to be in the vicinity of a cigarette. Like,
Yeah, but you can't tell me. You can't.
Of course
You can't.
you
You
have
can't.
to do it, you
He
know
can't dictate to me that it's wrong for me to smoke here when the law says I can.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That's one of the issues is you can't dictate to me what I can and can't do.
Yeah, that's fine.
Like, and the problem is there's lots of different religious viewpoints that come here, but there's only one viewpoint that behaves like that. And now that I look at things objectively and don't subscribe to anything, I can see that and be more honest about it and say, yeah, there's some serious hypocrisy here. There's some serious stuff going on.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
What made you go to Islam in the first place?
Okay.
How did it brainwash you to come into Islam?
Lots of things.
So how did they brainwash you to come into Islam? How they convince you to accept Islam?
Yeah, that's the. Don't say brainwash. Just say how did you get into Islam? That's the question.
That's a very long story. So when I was a teenager, I had actually read the Bible in its entirety. I read a translation of the Quran in its entirety. I actually went and spoke to Muslims about belief, and what the answers I got, they do sound very enticing. They sound very good. They sound very polished. And now I say that polished, very revised, very scripted, very always the same thing. And unfortunately, when you don't actually understand, like I do now, things to do with different theologies, the history of them, geopolitical history, when you hear the arguments without understanding those things, they sound great. And I was saying to, what's that guy called? I think, is it Chris? Earlier, the Christian guy, Chris. I said, I actually got this sort of saying I'd say now, which is Islam is like a meat pie. You eat it, it's great, but you don't want to know what goes into it. Because once you learn sort of all the theologies that were around at Muhammad's time, in his time and place, and then you realize every narrative the Quran gives, every practice, every statement about the universe, there's not one thing that's actually unique. So, but that process of leaving the religion as a whole, that took about a year of learning, just out of curiosity, because I've always been interested in history, politics, geopolitics, sociology, psychology, and as you learn sort of more of those things, I just couldn't take it seriously, because the Quran sounds all amazing and mystical. Then when you read, even when you read a translation of it, there's certain statements it makes about things to do with the universe or whatever. They sound very, you sort of read over them. But if you actually take the time to actually look into each statement it makes about the physical world, things like shooting stars are thrown by Allah at the devils trying to steal information from heaven and the earth. Isn't it weird that that was in Zoroastrian theology?
Yes.
And that Zoroastrians were around in Arabia at Muhammad's place and time. Isn't it weird that every astrological thing the Quran says, everything it says about the structure of the earth, happens to be found in Zoroastrianism?
Right.
And then I also found, and then also I found even, you know, the sort of the Islamic narrative of Christ, Isa ibn Maryam. Isn't it also funny that all the stories attributed to Christ happen to be in the Arabian Christianity that was around in Muhammad's time? And isn't it also strange that they worked on the oasis points on the trade route, and Muhammad was a trader for the best part of 30 years. So every day of his working life, he was surrounded by religious poetry of certain stories, and then when his revelation comes along, it's an amalgamation of everything he saw and heard. It's a bit strange, that, isn't it?
Can I ask though, what was the straw that broke the camel's back in which you were like,
Yeah. So the straw that
Rank, I'm coming for you,
there wasn't like a specific thing. Like, as I said, it happened over like a year-long period of learning about more and more different things. And it wasn't like I just woke up one day and went, I saw bullshit. Because that doesn't happen, because you're immersed in it, right? When you believe in Islam, you have to indulge in circular reasoning. You have to ignore evidence around you to come back to your paradigm to view things. But when you look at things objectively, you realize, and it was devastating. Like, I was genuinely upset about it. Like, because it is a devastating thing, because your whole world as you know it, you effectively realize is bullshit. But it wasn't like there was one thing that made it implode. The best way I can describe it is like a Jenga tower.
Okay.
You learn more, a bit comes out. You learn another theology and a part of history, a bit more comes out. You learn a bit more about geopolitics and trade, a bit more comes out. You learn a bit more about psychology and how humans have behaved and evolved over the many millennia. Another piece comes out, and then eventually it comes to a point where I'm trying to defend the deen of Islam. I'm actually trying to defend it with the Dawah arguments you hear here. And then I realize these are scientifically a load of nonsense. Historically, they're a load of nonsense.
What was the reaction of your peers when you left Islam?
I've had a few threats. Yeah, even here in this park.
You've had threats.
Yeah, in this park, like in December, was when I was last here. There was a discussion about politics, nothing to do with religion, and someone recognized me and asked, "Are you still a Muslim? Are you still a Muslim?" And I said, "Why do you care?" And he got more aggressive and more insistent. I said, "No, I think it's a load of nonsensical plagiarized shite." And then it went to, "Oh yeah, watch when you get outside. There's going to be consequences for what you say." And that's when I said, yeah, and I said, "Oh yes, very peaceful, very civilized. If you can't deal with people speaking, don't come to Speaker's Corner." And then he just continued swearing and stormed off, and that was it.
You must be free now as a ex-Muslim. You must be
Yeah, and it's like I'm a lot healthier. I'm a lot more like I'm able to think. I don't have to hate people. Like I've had conversations with people I even used to vehemently dislike and despise when I used to come here. Like, and now I can have good conversations with people, meaningful discussions that actually you don't see Muslims having in this park. Like when I was last here, we had discussions about politics, voting demographics, human psychology, species evolution. When do you see any of the Muslim speakers having these discussions? You don't. There's only one group that doesn't have these discussions. Like even I'm not trying to even big up any like groups or anything, but even I spoke to Bob when I was last here. We had a good discussion about law and practice of law and blasphemy, and it was on, I think SOCO recorded it as well, the conversation with Bob. Yeah, it was really good. And I was thinking, conversations like this, there's only one group in the park that you can't have that conversation with. There's only one. And you start, now I look at it and sort of notice things like that, and I realize, oh yeah, I used to have some serious issues. Like I could not accept information different to what I wanted, how I wanted to perceive the world. I was indulging in circular reasoning and wishful thinking to make it appear true in my mind. So like when I was learning more things about why it's not reliable and not correct, as I said to you, as it builds up in your head, it is devastating, and you even said, but I sort of then realized when I understood human psychology, what's going on here is the heavy amount of wishful thinking and circular reasoning. So in the sense that you can have mounds of evidence against your belief, but they don't need to accept it because it goes back in a circle to their paradigm of viewing things. And it took me a while to realize I was doing the same. And I felt like a bit of a dickhead and a bit of an idiot when I realized it. And like I said, this happened over a year-long period. And when I realized it, I did feel like a twat. But then I thought in the broader context of human history, I'm not the first person to do it, and I'm certainly not the last. It's within our nature to fall for these things and do these things. But obviously, Shamsi's walked off before I could mention any of these things, because like I said, meaningful, good discussion, you're listening to stuff. He doesn't want to hear that. He wants to waffle on about hadiths that have no historical accuracy, so he can serve his worldview. Circular reasoning. And he still didn't respond to the point properly that I first made, because he couldn't. And he stormed off in a little strop.
What's the like most extremist things you've seen in the mosque going on? Extreme side of things. What kind of things have you seen?
So on a religious level, nothing like really like religious. But I have seen like incidents happen in mosques. Like I saw a fight during Ramadan once, during iftar over a samosa. I'm not joking. Some kid nicked an old guy's samosa, and this old man, this Pakistani uncle, got up and going, Who took my samosa? And he was going around checking every child's plate in front of them. Yeah, I've seen once someone touched a kid in the madrasa, like just patted his head like in a friendly way, and the guy saw and was like, "Why are you touching my kid, you pedo?" And that got sorted. But I've never seen anything like religious
There's one
violence.
my imam that I had, right, my mosque teacher, he was teaching somebody Quran in a house, and then he ended up touching her in the wrong place by purpose. And then, like, he fled away to Pakistan. He fled away to Pakistan, and the police said, if he comes back to the UK, that's when they arrest him. So what they do is they touch on little kids, then they run away back to the home country.
This is another thing, yeah. I mentioned this to Bob off camera when I spoke to him. I said it is good that as a person he's genuine in taking like responsibility and talking about issues which religious communities tend not to do. So I was talking in the case of like crime or paedophilia, right? When it happened, like we saw the Church of England's reaction to the recent scandal, it was appalling. It was like they didn't really care. But I was like, I did see online, Bob went out of his way to address the issue and talk about it. So I was like, oh, that's good that there's someone talking about these issues. But then when I was a Muslim, I sort of noticed that Muslim communities I'm not speaking about all Muslims, but generally in the UK, the Muslim community is very hesitant to talk about community issues. There is more of an attitude to sweep it under the carpet. I don't think that's necessarily even a religious issue. I think that's a cultural thing. Like, because there's a lot of thing about shame and image. No way. But Muslims, especially in Britain, do have a big problem with owning up to problems in the community. It's simple things like, a lot of the areas in the UK where most Muslims live, have you noticed, have some of the highest crime rates and most trash on the street? Have you ever heard any of the imams talk about this or deal with it? I haven't. Yeah, man, it was good to speak to you.
Congratulations for leaving Islam.
So any final message to anyone that's considering becoming a Muslim,
Yeah.
that is a religion of
Yeah.
peace
Yeah,
and
so
tolerance?
So all I would say about that is what I said earlier. It's like a meat pie. You eat it, it's great, but you don't want to know what goes into it. What I would say is, don't listen to what they tell you. Read all the theologies in Arabia before the Quran was revealed, and then read what the Quran says about things to do with the universe, and you'll start to ask, an all-knowing God has released a book about everything, and it just happens to have all the information from all the theology surrounded by the person who surround the person who apparently received the revelation. It's very strange that it's like, didn't he know anything else? The human species is around 200,000 years old, and the all-knowing God only knows recycled stories and scientifically false nonsense from a 4,000-year period, all in civilizations that happen to be along the same trade route. And that's another thing, talking of trade routes, what was Mecca as a city? It wasn't a city, was it? It was a settlement set up to reach the trade route. It's like I was saying earlier about the narrative of Jesus in the Quran. Isn't it funny that the Arabian Christians had the story of Jesus turning the bird into a real bird? And isn't it funny they worked on the oasis points on the trade route, and for the best part of 30 years, Muhammad was a trader, so every day of his working life, he come across Arabian Christians reciting these stories, and his revelation happens to be a copy and paste of the exact same stories. And this is like most of the stuff about the universe, the stars, like one of my favorite ones, this is one of my favorite, who needs physics when you got this? The shooting stars are thrown at devils who are trying to steal information from between the heavens and the earth. And the sky is the ceiling, and the night sky, it's nothing to do with the sun and the moon. Oh, no. It's because a veil is cast over the earth. Now, these high-level ideas, very intellectual, very scientific, are also found in Zoroastrian mythology and theology. That was around for quite a few millennia before Muhammad was born, and there was several Zoroastrians in Arabia at the time of Muhammad. Isn't that strange? So what I'm saying is, learn about all the theologies in the region at the time, learn the geopolitics of what empires surrounded Arabia, learn what was going on, read what they believed, the stories, the ideas about the earth, the universe, the seven heavens, heaven and the earth. Read about all of it, and then read a translation of the Quran. It won't seem very divine then. It won't seem very unique or miraculous. It's like, as I said earlier to, I think his name is Ish, I was genuinely devastated when it took like a year, it didn't happen overnight, like learning thing after thing. It takes a long time. It's like a Jenga tower, piece by piece. It took about a year, and it was genuinely devastating. But it did come to a point where, as I was learning all these things, I was trying to defend the religion. And each argument I was using that you hear like people doing dawah here will use, actually, if you look them up, these things the Quran say, they're not actually new. They're all found in civilizations along the same trade route within a 4,000 year time span. So and it got to a point where I was like, wow, reading it going, Allah the All-Knowing doesn't seem to know very much. He doesn't know the history of his creation. He doesn't know the biology of his creation. He doesn't know the physics of his own universe. He doesn't know anything about the solar system. Yeah, everything he gets is wrong. He says that mountain is like another thing. This one is another one. This is like my second favorite. This one. Mountains are placed in the earth as pegs to stop the earth shaking. I don't know if they've heard of this, but there's a very heavily Muslim country called Pakistan. It's very mountainous and it gets a hell of a lot of earthquakes as well. So, now I look back at it objectively, without subscribing to anything, I can look at it and say, isn't it a bit weird that millions of people 5 times a day recite from a book that tell them mountains stop the earth shaking, and they've got lots of mountains and more earthquakes than anyone else? And that's the circular reasoning at play. Like I was saying, evidence is right in front of you, but when you believe in Islam, like you believe it's literal, your reasoning goes round in a circle. You got to ignore all the evidence around you, like mountains. You can literally see it's wrong. Got to ignore that. You got to come back to suit your paradigm. Just go around in a circle, ignore evidence. And that's the problem. Like, I've seen a joke on the internet, and it's offensive, but it's kind of true. It's like Islam spread by the sword, death by internet. Because, no, it is true. It is true. If you research a thing I said about shooting stars, it'll come up AI overview, Zoroastrian mythology. It tells you where it's from. There's nothing unique about it. If you Google, is the sky a solid ceiling? There's no physicist on the earth that's going to go, wow, that's a miracle, I want to accept that. They're going to laugh at you.
So essentially, you're saying that Muslims that don't have an excuse to not do their own research on Islam.
Because you want it to be true. Like I was saying, when I realized it took over a year and I was genuinely devastated, like it was hella depressing. Like, you've got to understand, I basically learned my whole paradigm to understand reality.
9 years you actually believe this. You believe this for 9 years. You believe
Yeah. Like,
years.
literally, yeah. So when you learn over the period of a year doing genuine research, not trying to just, like, research before when I was a Muslim was try and find something that makes the religion look right and go at Speaker's Corner and spread that. No. Real genuine research. Is the sky a fucking ceiling? Is the night sky a veil cast over the fucking earth? Do you know what I mean? Are shooting stars even stars? No. Oh, well, there you go then. That's what it is. That's it, yeah, finito. Hope you have a good day, all of you.
Hey, Bilal, so before you go, obviously I'm doing a live stream, and they're asking if you are considering having a YouTube channel.
Do you know what? Everyone I speak to, even in my personal life, tells me to do a YouTube channel or a podcast. Everyone does. If someone's willing to help me, give me a shout. I've got no equipment or nothing. If you're willing to help me out,
I'll tell you what, Bilal, we will help you out as long as you become a Christian and
no. You see that? No.
I'm only joking, brother. So, yeah, on the final question on Christianity, I mean, compared to Islam, do you think that there's more evidence that supports Christian belief, and that should make you consider it seriously, you think?
Yeah, like, what's your current stance on everything? Now that you've seen at least Islam, with the likes of atheism, Christianity. Where are you now?
Yeah.
Where are you now in Christianity now?
So with Christianity, I don't believe in it.
Okay.
I don't believe in any of the established like religions on earth, because I wasn't just learning about the circumstances of Islam. I learned different theological histories, and to be honest, I know this is going to sound very atheistic, but I assure you I'm not an atheist. So I'll clarify what I believe, because people always ask.
Right.
I'm confidently, comfortably, and contently agnostic, but I just firmly reject all the established religions and religious beliefs. So my views on religion are quite atheistic, but I'm not an atheist. I say I wouldn't be surprised if there is some creator, and I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't. But I don't think any established thing on earth is the literal way you should view everything, understand everything. But I think in society, I don't think having Christianity in your society causes problems. You know, like
Thank you.
when was you see what happened in
Austria,
yeah,
Germany,
both.
both. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's like they weren't Buddhists or Jehovah's Witnesses, were they? Do you know what I mean? You know, so there we go.
But listen, Bilal, obviously stay in touch. We're here to support you. Any questions on Christianity, theological, philosophical?
Yeah, where's Bob today?
I don't know. I think he's in the. I don't know. I don't know where he's at. He's taking a break. Normally takes a break from time to time.
I wanted to say on that channel, the Revelations channel, as you know, some of your viewers recognized me, and they said, "Oh, he looks a lot better these days, and he's having good conversation with people." And I'm like, "You've got Shamsi saying you've been destroyed because you're Murtadamist," and I'm like, "But every single person of average intelligence or above is saying, oh, he actually looks a lot better. He's having good discussions with people about meaningful topics." Before when I used to come, you know, that was not the case, was it? You know what I mean? Like, I vehemently disagree with Bob's opinions on politics. We had a good civil discussion. When I used to come here before with my big beard, that wouldn't happen.
Oh, okay. So your mindset was
That's a
more
fake
violent.
smile. Christian fake smile.
I'm not a Christian. You called me a Jew and a Buddhist earlier. I'm Polish.
Jews don't look like anyway.
You said I was a Jew, not me. I think you need to stop peasant marriage. So as we can see, we've got an astrophysicist here, some sort of doctor or engineer, a real academic. You can just feel the intellect radiating off of him. You just radiate pure academia, this one. Who needs math, science, technology when you've got this? That's all we need. This is what happens when you sacrifice objective thinking, critical thinking, genuine research, when you sacrifice it for 7th century camel herding desert drivel. This is what it does to your intellect, people. Stay away. Stay away from that.
Good man. Well,
That's it.
God bless you, brother. Yeah. Stay safe and stay in touch with us, brother. Yeah. Billy. Yeah, brother Billy. So pray for brother Billy. Yeah. One day, family is gonna become a Christian. So all good in the hoods. Yeah, that was an atheist. He was a proper Islamist. Yeah, back in the day. So thank God he changed now. So wonderful testimony. Okay, family, listen, I'm going to shut this live stream for the time being, and then no promises, but I will try to come on in the next 30 minutes or so. So make sure you hit the notifications thingy-majiggy so you get notified for the next live stream. Okay, take care, and I'll see you soon.